we've just had President's Day. So let's spend a little time talking about one of them, George Washington, also known as the father of the country. Now, you know you love this show, so please hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button. We want to get our subscriptions up. And if you love our videos, that means you don't want to miss any. So scroll down, get on our mailing list. That way you'll be sure to get all of our videos, because believe it or not, from time to time, YouTube has an issue and you may not have the same kind of access that you otherwise would if you're on the mailing list. Also, see that donate button? Hit that. Throw a little something in the tip jar. Make sure we can continue to give you hard-hitting programming. Larry with epoch.com, Larry with epoch.com. Brenda Farah is the Assistant Director and Senior Policy Analyst at the Simon Center for American Studies at the Heritage Foundation. You should see the size of her business card. She wrote a piece called President's Day, Reflections on George Washington's American Character. She now joins us. Brenda, thank you for joining us. What is it about George Washington that people should know, but in your opinion, do not know?
Well, that list is very, very long for George Washington, but I don't think it's an understatement to say that the Constitution and the structure of the Constitution would not have happened without George Washington. So leading up to the Constitutional Convention, which of course was supposed to just amend the Articles of Confederation, the headlines were reading that Franklin and Washington were going to be there. And Washington in particular lent credibility to that gathering. So I don't think the gathering would have happened without his presence. And when they were debating the executive, you have to remember they had just separated from England and were kind of skeptical of consolidating power into a single individual. But they were reassured that Washington would likely fill that post. And everyone respected Washington's character so much that they were able to pass that measure and have a single executive. And following the Constitution, Washington supported it. So it's unlikely that the Constitution would have been ratified without that significant support.
So the moniker, the father of our country, Brenda, in your opinion, well-deserved?
Absolutely well-deserved. We owe Washington so much debt, a debt of gratitude, because Washington really is responsible for our American national character. It was a character that he inculcated in himself and dedicated his life to instilling in Americans. He was insistent that citizens from separate states unite around these common principles, the principles in the Declaration and the Constitution, and let go of their divisiveness and both reflect self-government in our institutions and literally govern themselves, become the kind of people, of virtuous people who deserved citizen rule.
Brenda, let's talk about General George Washington. As you point out in your piece, this guy took on the mightiest military in the world at the time.
That's right. And he defeated the mightiest military. He was very strategic about when he would engage with the British militarily, and he put things off to ensure that the French would eventually come to our aid. But one of the things that he did with the troops, which I find most interesting, was that he constantly elevated the cause of the war. He insisted that the Declaration, when it was written, be read aloud to the troops. And he was telling them that this is the cause that we are fighting for. This is the cause of human freedom. And it was something that all these everyday farmers from different parts of the country could unite behind.
Brenda, the soldiers thought he was divinely touched. I think he was shot at. I think bullets had gone through his clothing, shot his horse underneath him. Nothing ever hit him. And so he had this almost divine quality where he was being protected by God in the eyes of his soldiers.
Yes, I think so. There's another wonderful story. So as the war was waging on, the troops were exhausted. They were bloodied. They had dedicated so much and they weren't being paid. And there was an instance where they rebelled and were contemplating rebellion. And Washington stood up to read a speech and a letter from Congress. And as he stood up, he fumbled around in his pocket for his glasses. And he said, "You must forgive me, for I have grown gray and nearly blind in the service of my country." And that just stopped everyone in their tracks, because they reflected on what Washington had done for his country. He wasn't being paid. He only asked for reimbursement for his expenses. And I think they must have felt a little bit of shame in this great man.
Larry Elder here. Buy gold and get a free safe to store it in. That's right. On qualifying purchases from Birch Gold Group now through March 31st, they will ship a free safe directly to your door. All you have to do is visit LarryForGold.com to get your free info kit on gold and to claim eligibility for your free safe. Here's the deal. The Fed keeps raising rates because, frankly, it's the only tool they have to keep inflation under control. And it's not working. You cannot spend your way out of inflation. You've seen the impact on the stock market. You've seen the impact on your savings. Hedge inflation by owning gold, whether physical gold and silver in your safe or through an IRA in precious metals, where you can hold real gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied customers. Visit LarryForGold.com for your free info kit on gold and to claim your eligibility for your free home safe by March 31st on qualifying purchases. Again, visit LarryForGold.com. That's LarryForGold.com. So let's fast forward. We're now debating over who's going to be the first president. He is unanimously elected. When will that happen again?
I don't think it will ever happen again. I don't think the single presidency would have happened without Washington, without knowing that there was a man of such outstanding character that they could count on to take on the presidency. And you have to remember, for the first presidency, everything that Washington did set a precedent. From the smallest thing to the largest thing. There was at one point John Adams contemplating titles for the presidency, and you can imagine Washington would have nothing to do with that. And then the highest things, from what does the presidency have to do with foreign policy? And Washington had to navigate all these things without a model to go off of.
We think of Washington as shark infested. It was back even then. And I think it surprised Washington about the division and about the sniping that he experienced when he was president.
Right. I think that is unfortunately true. And in this divisive time, I would say the best chance of uniting us, and something that Washington would agree with, is indeed the principles of our founding. That is the source of our character. That is what makes us Americans. The belief in the Declaration of Independence, what Abraham Lincoln called the electric cord. And so returning to those principles and our unified character in a particularly divisive time, I think, is our best solution.
The founding fathers, correct me if I'm wrong, Brenda, did not anticipate the rise of political parties, let alone that they'd be at each other's throats the way they are.
Well, Washington warned against political parties. It was happening during his time as well, with Jefferson and Hamilton, and some disagreements between them and Madison, of course. So I don't think they'd be surprised at the developments of political parties. I don't think the way it has come about that they would advise those political parties in the way that they've divided Americans.
So you say that Washington stepped down from power twice. I presume you mean after his first term, he was done, he'd had it, washed his hands with it, and he's wooed back for a second term.
Well, he stepped down the first time from being a general. Historically, many generals have used that opportunity to seize political power. So Washington could have done the same. And of course, like you mentioned, he stepped down from the presidency. He actually really wanted to resign after the first term, and Madison persuaded him not to, because he said, your country needs you. And Washington was unsure that this infant country would survive. And so he took up a second term, even though it wasn't what he wanted personally.
Finally, Brenda, we now have this movement called the 1619 Project, sponsored by people like the New York Times, where the original sin of America is slavery, and where the founding fathers like Washington and Jefferson are maligned because they owned slaves. One historian called this presentism or presentialism, meaning looking at things through the prism of today's eyes. What is your reaction when you hear people maligning people like Washington and Jefferson because at one point they owned slaves?
Well, others have observed, and this is true, that what is exceptional about America is not that the institution of slavery existed in America, because it existed in every major civilization. But what is exceptional is that America abolished the institution of slavery. And I would say the same of someone like Washington. It's not exceptional that a man living in his time owned slaves. What's exceptional about Washington is that he freed his slaves through his will upon the death of Martha. And through the estate, he provided for the care of the old and the infirm and the education of the young. So I think that is Washington's final and most important commentary on the institution of slavery.
Well, Ben Carson had a school named after him until he became a Republican, and then they removed the name of Ben Carson High School. Please tell me we're not going to change the name of Washington, D.C.?
I hope not, and I think as long as the Washington Post maintains their name, we can maintain the name of Washington, D.C.
Brenda Haffera, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
What's that? The great Eldersky has a pair of My Pillow, My Slippers in his baby brown libertarian hands. Indeed, I do. These come in different colors. There's also different styles. Just call the number on your screen. And the My Pillow is now My Pillow 2.0. Even cooler, even more firm. There are over 100 products. Call the number on your screen or go to mypillow.com. Make sure you use promo code ELDER. And this is a 6-pack. Mike Lindell calls them towels that work, meaning towels that, absorb the water, which is what towels are supposed to do. Have you noticed? Go to stores, they got these towels all stacked up there. They look fluffy, they look pretty, but they don't actually work. These absorb the water. They, of course, come in different colors. MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER, or call the number on your screen that I mentioned. There are now over 100 products. And this, of course, is the Giza Dream Bedsheet. Mine is in white because, after all, I am the black face of white supremacy, but you're not. You may want a different color. And, of course, they come in different sizes because beds come in different sizes. Finest cotton in the world, grown in an area in Egypt known as Giza. Giza Dream Bed Sheets. Again, there are over 100 MyPillow products. Call the number on your screen or go to mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. That's mypillow.com, promo code ELDER.